So today we will be hosting a very dear colleague of mine, Dr. Stephen Hassan. We have shared a journey both professionally in the Harvard program in psychiatry and the law, and publicly in our attempts to educate the public about the dangers of Donald Trump. Dr. Hassan is familiar to many of you as one of the foremost cult experts in the nation, who has also contributed to the much more dangerous case of Donald Trump, 50 psychiatrists and mental health experts warn anew. He is a mental health professional, a forensics expert, and a Fielding Fellow. He founded and directs the Freedom of Mind Resource Center, and he is the author of Combating Cult Mind Control, Freedom of Mind, and The Cult of Trump. He has been featured in major media outlets such as the Associated Press, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, ABC, NBC, and the New York Times. He has developed a highly influential BITE model, which is the world's first scientifically validated construct for evaluating authoritarian control. He also hosts the podcast, The Influence Continuum. So far, we've covered how our interconnectedness can function as one mind, but can also allow dangerous influences to spread like a contagious disease. So Dr. Hassan, like no one else, has helped people come out of these dangerous influences and has allowed many to emerge from the undue influences of cults. And so I will turn the discussion over to you, Dr. Hassan.
Thank you so much. Shall I call you Dr. Lee? I kind of am used to calling you Bandy after all of these years, but thanks for having me on. Hi, everybody. And my social media people changed my podcast to Cult Conversations, the Influence Continuum, because we weren't getting in the ratings for cult podcasts. And I'm like, I didn't want to do the cult. I want to do the influence. And they're like, huh? Anyway, what we're trying to do to build a bigger audience. I just want to start by complimenting you, Bandy, and the dangerous case of Donald Trump, and just say it's just disgusting that the APA censored you and all of the experts with this bogus use of the Goldwater rule. And I've done interviews with you and other psychiatrists who said it was bogus. And it was just plain example of censorship. And as you know so well, we've been censored by mainstream media, which is why we're on these alternative platforms. And to say the obvious is we're human beings and we have five senses and we're social creatures and we need information in order to navigate reality. And if you control somebody's information, and you can control their behavior and their thoughts and their emotions and ultimately program their identity. And so, just to say for those who may be hearing me for the first time, I was just the kid from Queens writing poetry and at Queens College, and my girlfriend dumped me. And the next thing I know, at the cafeteria, I'm getting lied to by Mooney recruiters. And within a few weeks, I got radicalized and became a right-wing fascist. And I'm not saying that, frivolously. I mean, I really was a fascist. And literally in 74, and I'm 6 feet tall, and I was an extra honor student, and I was selected very quickly by one of the top Japanese leaders to be a representative of the group, because they didn't want Koreans and Japanese. They wanted Americans who were good talkers, and I looked more handsome than I'm just joking. I kind of looked like John Lennon, picture dark black hair and stuff. I had a ponytail when they met me. Anyway, I got to be in the room with Moon and the top leaders where he literally said, we're going to infiltrate the US government. God thinks that democracy is satanic, and he wants a theocracy. and we're going to control the government. We're going to take over the world. And when we take power, we'll amend the Constitution and make it a capital offense for people who violate our rules. And I I grew up, liberal Jew, educated about the Holocaust and Hitler and, anti-Vietnam War protests, thought Nixon was horrible. But I was so brainwashed that I went and fasted for Nixon during Watergate on the Capitol stairs with hundreds of Moonies because God wanted him to be president. So I know this mindset that's happening today, except it was the younger me 53 years ago. And I got deprogrammed after a near fatal van crash when I learned about Chinese communist brainwashing and my brain started kicking in. And I was like horrified that this happened to me. And part of my own healing was just trying to understand how did they do this to me? Like I bicycled cross country when I was 16, you know, I was not a joiner. Like how did they do it? So this has been my journey. And as I've deconstructed what they did to me, I've been learning about all these other groups and the patterns started emerging that were universal. And so my dissertation for my doctorate was really taking the Chinese communist brainwashing models and applying Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory, which was thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And I took their models and I was like, I wonder if I could deconstruct how the Moonies work and put it into behavior manipulation and control and thought control and emotional control. And it started like, haha, this is interesting. And I added the I. And I did this in my 85 master's thesis, but it wasn't until around 1999 that a friend of mine, a minister, said, you could change the order, Steve. He's a Texan. You could change the order and call a bite, and then people can remember it, Steve. And I'm like, what a great idea, buddy. Can I use it? He's like, definitely. So now it's got millions of hits, around the world. And when the Chinese COVID rebellion happened, there was not a lot of media about it, but people were very upset about being locked in. I found out that my bite model was translated into Chinese and was being circulated undercover. And there was something called the white paper movement, again, not necessarily known in the US, but people would walk around with a white piece of paper, but it signified the bite model. It was like signaling, covertly with the government. It was really interesting. Anyway, so back to your theme of one government, I'm with you. It's we're either going all authoritarian or we're going to like have planetary survival and think about what we need to do to live together on this beautiful biosphere. And I am opposed to the whole tech bro religious cult, transhumanism, long-termism, accelerationism, crypto ideology. And if you're not familiar with Greg Epstein's book, Tech Agnostic, please read it. And I don't know if you've interviewed him yet, Bandy, but he'd be a great guest for you. It was published by MIT Press, peer reviewed. And he said, the new world religion is this big tech crap. People used to go around like this, but now they're going around like this, with their mobile phones. And he included my influence continuum and bite model in my dissertation and just called it an authoritarian cult. And when the New York Times last week did an article on the rationalists and the ideology that many of these tech bros kind of launched from, they quoted Epstein. They said it was a cult. And Epstein messaged me on LinkedIn. He said, I told the reporter 5 times he need to interview you and quote you. Censored. So it's in the New York Times as, a cult, but why teach the public how to discern ethical versus unethical mind control? Well, if you're an authoritarian, you don't want an educated public. So, Bandy and myself and other mental health professionals, we really are experts. And I'll add one more thing. And tell me if I'm ranting too long, Bandy. If you want to do questions, just let me know.
Yeah, three
But
more
when I
minutes.
was researching The Cult of Trump, which by the way was re-released before the last election with a foreword by George Conway, when I was researching it, I learned about fourth generation psychological warfare. Has anyone heard of fourth or fifth generation psychological warfare? Well, in my Substack, where I put all my interviews now on blogs, I interviewed a Stanford political sociology graduate, PhD, named James Scaminacci III, who did his dissertation on fourth generation warfare. And it was first described by an American military strategist named William Lind, Lind, and it's attacking experts, attacking science, and attacking democratic institutions. And it's what our CIA were doing to other countries we didn't like to destabilize them, even if they were democratically elected. It was psychological warfare to create distrust of their government and to undo, or what we call unfreeze, a person's sense of reality and sense of identity. Well, guess what? William Lynn paired up with Paul Weyrich of the Christian Right in the 80s. That's when Reagan got into power. And I did an interview with Craig Unger about how William Casey uh, was a traitor and did a deal with the Iranian terrorists who were holding American hostages to undo Jimmy Carter's second term run. So we can trace back all of these unethical, dirty tactics. But the point is that Michael Flynn and one of his people, Waldron, have been doing fourth generation and fifth generation on Americans to advance this Christian right-wing nationalist ideology. And QAnon, guess what? It was fourth generation psychological warfare. It was literally a psyop, or it was turned into a psyop. I want to qualify that. And this is a great story. I don't talk about it much, but I met one of the founders of the group Anonymous, the hacking group, because they took on Scientology, a group that has been hassling me, and I've been hassling them since 1976 when I got out of the Moonies. And they were the ones that mobilized people to demonstrate around the world outside of Scientology orgs with Guy Fawkes masks. Do you remember that from the movie V? But it brought so many ex-members and their families out who were so afraid that they were going to be harassed by Scientology because they really have been nasty and done a lot of illegal things. Anyway, I met Greg Hausch at a 10th anniversary of their action against Scientology, and um, I said, "Hey, Greg, QAnon. This is 2017. What's the scoop?" Oh, he said, "Oh, I know those guys. It was a total goof on the Trump people." I went, "Yeah." He said, "Then they realized they could make money for selling merch." And then the Russians got involved. This is a quote. I said, "Greg, would you say that on camera?" He said, "No." And there's nothing less than taking down the US. I was just listening this morning, Bandy, to the New York Times audio interview, and they were talking about the National Guard mobilization, and the woman's like, "I don't know what his agenda is," and I want to scream. They want to take down the US. Can't you tell? They've put every unqualified person in every position because they don't want a functioning government. They want to destroy the US dollar for as the world currency. I mean, that is clear that that's the agenda. And China's letting Russia be the front bad guys, but they're very involved too.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
We're
Sorry if I talk too long, but
oh, not at
I'm
all.
passionate
This was
about this.
very, very thought-provoking. So we'll go to questions.